Welcome everyone. We're going to be here for a couple of hours together, and we are going to be catching up on the energies and also doing a live channeling to bring in whatever is best suited for all of us right now, because we are going through an interesting collective time on the planet. And if you've been with me for a while, you know that some of the messages I've been bringing in have been supporting this also, even going back into 2019. And I'm going to give a little recap about that, about what some of those messages are, because I think today it's really important to look at the vibrational components of what's happening, because as a community, we understand that that's so incredibly important. We can't ignore what's happening in physical, but we also need to understand that the non-physical ramifications of this are just as important, if not more, than how we can interact in physical right now. And to some degree, this may be why we're very physically separate and sequestered from each other, to really play that role of connecting energetically. So before we begin, I know we're going to have a lot of new people online on the call, and I just want to mention we're here from the Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution. We are a volunteer organization. We are here in the Metro Detroit area, and we are focused on raising human consciousness. And that manifests for us in a variety of different ways. We have our expo, which will happen this November at the Doubletree Suites Hilton. We have a movement for kids, conscious youth, and Weekend in Wizardry, which are both programs that support our highly intuitive and telepathic youth collectives on the planet. That's run by Kayla Casey. And we have a lot coming down the pipeline. We have a lot in the works. We do local events. We do these remote events once a month. Please join us here in Detroit. We have a lot of people coming in, actually flying in to visit us here in person. And we do all have our individual missions as well. Ethan Fox, who is the founder and director of the organization, has his own personal mission where he's sharing energy transfers, which can be really supportive at this time. So join him live once a month here. And I have an inner circle community also. So that community has been reserved mostly for the people who are in my courses, who do my inner circle channeled courses, and I have an inner circle monthly program. But this community is so incredibly supportive, and I think we all need that right now, remotely and otherwise. And what's happening is local groups are forming in physical. So the inner circle community is kind of springing off into these little collectives in their respective geographic regions all over the world to study the channeled content and to share and just support each other. And it's beautiful. And I'm actually coming in to support that further. In a few weeks, I will have the Inner Circle community page on my website launching. Super excited about that. It's a place where you can go and you can form a group or search out a group that already exists. There are message boards there to share meeting information. And when a group reaches 5 members, they'll automatically start downloading the manuscript of my first book free. So every week we have a built-in book reader on my website where you will download new chapters for the group to explore, and it merits discussion. This is why I'm doing this. This transmission started coming through in 2015. As much as I wanted to force it, I understand now why it could have never come out until now. So I love that these communities are forming, and they're going to be exploring this transmission together and utilizing it as a tool for us to walk into the 5th dimension, because that's really what I think it is here to support us to do, which leads me to the current energies. I have been posting or going live in my inner circle community. So if you join there, I just did a live transmission the other day where we did a group meditation. But I was sharing some of my personal insights because the guides have been coming in and sharing common themes and offering tools and information for us to understand. And that's the first message I want to bring in, is about understanding. Because I did I think it was end of last year, you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, a program, one of my inner circle programs, Lightworker 11, on exploring truth. And the messages that came into that course were so profound about our holographic reality and how many of us spend so much time attempting to uncover truth or to find things in the collective that we, are digging for, whether they be the conspiracy theories or how we're going to bring people to justice and all of this stuff. And although there is truth sprinkled throughout all of this stuff that we are paying attention to, the guides have been really, really clear right now that there's so much information in the field about what's happening on the planet that we can get a little lost and carried outside of our personal power. Because our power to influence anything that's going on collectively exists in the quantum now, in the present moment. So if we're constantly trying to analyze and uncover and share and prove or disprove, we're wasting a lot of energetic currency that is carrying us away from what really I think the purpose of this energy truly is, and that is to bring the fifth dimension to the surface. So going back to 2019 and even before that, the guides were saying that energetically, we were going to go through a massive dismantling of what they call hierarchies, which exist on the planet today. And these hierarchical structures can be seen in our governments. They can be seen in our school systems. They can be seen in our currency. They can be seen in our personal lives. And they can be seen, in our racial, gender issues, all of that stuff. But we have done so much work on ourselves, haven't we, throughout the years, where false beliefs, false identities, we've been pulling all of that stuff out and really shedding our skin and uncovering the authenticity, of who we are, which standalone really is unity consciousness, right? It's not that it's just about us, it's about everybody. And because we've made those personal changes in our lives, we have to understand that we are affecting the collective, okay? So what we dismantle within, vibrationally, energetically, is going to affect everything that we've manifested around us. Because we have kind of come through, I think a period of time where we have placed a lot of blame, on everything around us. It's the government's fault, or people are voting for the wrong person, or, all of this stuff, right? Monetary system and otherwise. Yet everything that we've manifested collectively is connected to us in some way. And I say that with the utmost respect because we've all been creating through, a third dimensional and heavier, dense energy than what we are today. I mean, we can look back at the past and we can see a lot of the structures that we've created, and we didn't notice them the way we do now. But certainly we see where our freedoms are being restricted, where things aren't in our highest and best intention as a collective. And we can see that because we have achieved a new level of consciousness. And so what that means is everything that no longer matches that consciousness has to dismantle and fall away. So this is really, I think, the beginning of that we're seeing, is the falling away, the dismantling, all right? But I want to bring in a really powerful message that is in my book and really took me by surprise as I was editing recently. And I've talked about it a little bit in my recent channelings, and that is elementally, okay, we are the earth. We are humanity. We have elements within our bodies, and the earth has elements within her. So the guides were talking in my book about how if we have toxin-laden water systems on our planet, this is a mirror reflection of the toxicity in our own bodily water system. And that can be literal, deliberate, physical toxicity. It can be literal, deliberate, energetic coding that we have implanted into our water through our thoughts, right? Because our water holds memory, it holds energy. If we judge ourselves constantly, or we are constantly speaking to ourselves in ways that really aren't the truth of who we are, we're coding our human water with a frequency. And we are going to see that frequency manifest on the planet or vice versa, because everything has a call and response. We are interwoven with each other magnetically like the roots of the plant consciousness beneath the earth and the soils. That's how powerful we are. So let's take that to the next level. If we have some type of microbiotic collective or viral collective or energy that is on our planet, our bodies have to have some kind of energetic connection to that. We have microbiotic collectives in our bodies. We have microbiotic collectives in the soil. We have microbiotic collectives, within the water and the elements and everything else. So the way we speak to ourselves during this crisis or pandemic, the way that we perceive our reality in our bodies, and especially the way we step out of the present moment, out of that quantum now, is affecting everything else that's going on, right? So the guides would come in really quickly to say, there might be a war that's happening on the other side of the planet, and we're aware of that war, but it's not affecting us physically. We don't think that we really have the ability to affect that in any way, other than maybe physical supplies or that, that type of thing, when truly we are a part of everything that takes place on the earth, regardless or not, if we're in the geographic region that it's happening in. That's truly how powerful we are. So you can see how a moving train like this, if we get really entangled in it in the wrong way, is going to perpetuate a timeline. Okay, and again, saying that with the utmost and highest respect, that we have something going on that's a vast, fast-moving train, and it is entangled in multiple truths and multiple purpose. An energy this massive could never be for one purpose. Could never be for one purpose. The guides would say that every single time. It's kind of like a soul contract. We have a contract with a romantic partner, and I've done these sessions so many times where there's been some catastrophic, like traumatic, abuse or a breakup. And we want understanding. We want to reason with what happened. What was that contract? Why did that one thing happen to us? And time again, your guides will come in and say, this contract was multidimensional. It wasn't just affecting the present moment, it was affecting past timelines, other experiences you've been on together. What your partner was getting from this contract and what you were getting from this contract were completely different, but you wouldn't have magnetized it unless there was some commonality, something that the two of you were drawing to ascend or as an opportunity to raise your consciousness, to actually improve your path. And we often don't look at life this way. We look at all of the difficulties and the challenges as getting in our way or being karmic. But in reality, what we're receiving is a series of opportunities to help us ascend and to move forward constantly. So we take that microcosmic example of this relationship and let's expand it to what's happening on the planet. What you can guarantee right now is that every single human on the planet is receiving something unique in this experience that is for them to advance and move them forward on their timeline. So that's number one. Number two, I think from a grander perspective, everything that we've created beneath the surface, the new approaches to health and schooling and economy, right? All of those signs and things that we've seen that for years, many people have asked me in these events, why is it not sticking? Why is it not sticking? Well, because we've had variations in dimension, we've had variations in vibration. That's all leveling out right now. So we're really preparing to walk into a new era and getting the density and the stuff that no longer matches who we've become out of the way so that can rise up and actually hold. And I've seen it time and time again as well in the personal readings that I do. So many of us on the planet right now are shedding the old and are moving so quickly and vibrationally through our soul's timeline that things aren't even sticking to us. We're attempting to create things that don't hold or stick or really manifest on the planet, and we can't figure out why. Well, this time on the planet is really about leveling out that playing field, right? About letting go of the parts of us that get in the way or are holding us back from a fifth dimensional consciousness. And in addition to going through it in our personal lives, we have to understand that we're going to see it take place in all of these little micro, collectives on the planet, which are societally based constructs that we have manifested in the third dimension. They're coming to an equilibrium. And to have this much restriction on the planet right now has to tell us that we're about to expand in massive amounts. It's like the arrow, when you pull the arrow back and the bow, you have to pull it backwards first before it'll take off, right? That's the way I look at this. Or the clay, the clay pot, it doesn't become that pot until it goes through the fire. It has a little bit of fire to hold it together. That's really where we are right now. But I think there's so many advantages also to being where we are. Awakening is going to be happening in massive number. And I'm seeing some really interesting interplay with this. And I'll give you an example. My family, they really aren't in this conversation that we're here in the midst of right now. No judgment on that. But my sister, who has a son in the local school system, said that they did a town hall meeting the other day virtually to address all of the parents. And she asked me, she said, "Have you ever heard of 5G? And I said, "As a matter of fact, I have." Why? And she said, "Well, one of the parents asked if 5G was going to be installed while all of the schools were closed." And I thought, how interesting that a parent on a mass call like that would inject a topic that many others probably hadn't considered or heard of, but sent them looking to figure out what it was. You see? And this is really where I think a lot of us are going to come to a crossroads, is we're uncovering things that needed to rise up to the surface. Even within us, there are parts of us that are coming to the surface that we're meant to bear witness to right now as it's clearing. But we're here in this state of, I'd say, separation from each other in this virtual way to really flesh out some of the things that need to be brought to the surface and the stuff that needs to kind of fall away. And interesting that that's coming into these more conventional types of, conversations, I think personally. And also being with family and being away from the daily responsibility and grind is kind of putting people in the framework to perceive their lives a little bit differently. I think that was definitely necessary for some of us who are having awakenings but are suppressing them. And the guides have shown me this as well, that with the Schumann resonance, what we've achieved here on the planet, there's been this incredible spike of energy and awakenings. But that doesn't mean that everyone's taking the opportunity to utilize that and transition. So just like in our personal lives, if we're suppressing something time and time again, we will keep experiencing it until the universe comes in like a catalyst and breaks it apart so that we can examine it closer, because through no fault of our own, the universe has carried us to an experience that we needed to have to move us along. And that's what I think is happening in so many people's lives right now. And it could never be the same. It could never be the same. I was laying on the floor yesterday with my dog, and my oldest daughter is home from college, and my youngest daughter was there. And my oldest daughter is a musical theater student, and there was a professor who was going live to perform some piano numbers from some of the musicals that they had done. And we were just laying there listening to the piano music together in this moment with the dog on the floor. And I thought, when was the last time that we all stopped to listen to piano music in the middle of the living room? I mean, this is really, I think, the beauty of what's coming to the surface, because this is a time in which unity consciousness is meant to come back together. And it's starting in our own homes. We really have an opportunity right now to explore unity consciousness in the microcosm of our own family, and then bring it together here on the planet in ways that we haven't been able to do thus far. If there's any questions out there, Ethan, no? Okay, we'll just keep going then. Something else the guides have been talking about, and I alluded to truth in the first message here, is that it's really important for us to untangle ourselves from social media a little bit right now and to get present with what is. But to allow ourselves to cultivate our own personal truth is where our freedom really begins to unfold or uncover. This time on the planet, we were told, is about sovereignty and freedom. And I think it doesn't really have much to do with the way we thought freedom was in the third dimension. This is our ability in a very restrictive experience to actually create our own personal reality. And it's a creative time as well, because it's causing us to think outside of the box, to bring things in that we never would have done had this situation not arisen. Okay, and I think that some of the virtual stuff that's going on, especially with the schooling right now, is a super incredible opportunity for so many parents who have had issues with Common Core, who have had issues with mandatory vaccines, who have been looking for some alternative outlet. It may not feel that way right now, but if we begin to perceive it that way, we're going to see these things bubble to the surface that are going to be the replacement for some of the things that we have had a really hard time accepting on our planet that can, again, no longer come with us as we journey into the fifth dimension. Another thing that the guides have pointed out is that for us to have this much free time on our hands is a really interesting parallel to what the fifth dimension is going to bring in. Because in the fifth dimension, we don't work so hard in order to receive. So we've gotten really caught up in the third dimension and the old experience that we've been in on sourcing and physical. And that means there was some physical effort required or some measurement for a certain number of hours for a certain amount of money, right, that we got entangled in. And that became our source. Financial abundance, currency, government, big business, these things became our source. And they no longer can be our source where we're heading in the fifth dimension. We're preparing to source differently. And what that means is we don't have to effort so much in physical in order to receive. We are here to source for our authenticity, for who we are, for a signal that I think we're straightening out right now vibrationally, that has been skewed throughout our linear timelines to something that was really hard for us to work with. And this is a time where our unique talents and abilities are really meant to be acknowledged and rise to the surface. For us to have this much time on our hands to explore those things is really a gift. Because when we utilize that in some really significant way, because let's face it, none of us are here to do the same thing in order to source. We begin to create the new earth right in our own backyards, right in our own homes. And if there's anything that I would bring in today that I believe is most significant, it is that we are creating in our lives right now the sanctuary that we want to live in, the freedom, the amount of time and free ability we have to do whatever we want to do in this moment. And to find that beyond where we're perceiving these restrictions is so very important, because it matters not, I know I'm jumping around, but I've gotten a lot of questions today about things like 5G, which we can certainly answer when the guys are here. And I've been getting a lot of questions about the economy. I've been getting a lot of questions about the mandatory vaccine program. And here's what the guides have said. When we create our reality outside of those restrictions, we make the biggest impact on the collective that that will manifest this new fifth dimension. So it matters not what's coming down the pipeline from the perceived restrictions that we have right now, our government, our monetary system. When we can align energetically and create our life to the solution, even at the most restricted point in our human history, that's the exit point. It's kind of like the portal, the gateway we open up to have a new earth manifested right before our eyes. And the interesting thing is all of the components of that are already here. So the guides have shown it to me energetically that we've templated the earth non-physically with a new dimensional reality. As I mentioned earlier, we haven't seen it stick. We're starting to see it more and more, but we haven't seen it mass accepted. But in order for that mass acceptance to take place, we're not here to fight for those things as much as we are to utilize them right now as tools in our personal life. Whether it's the alternative currency that's coming to the surface, right? Whether it's alternative ways of healing, whether it's utilizing your creativity to manage the outer world in ways that best suit your family and your personal life. These things are what are most important. The way I've done this is create my sanctuary at home. I've spent a lot of time in the last week moving my crystals around and feeling into my home space, playing the mantras, lighting the essential oils and things like this to really bring the comfort into the space so that we're not feeling like we're restricted. Another way that we can do this is to look at this time as an opportunity to explore. I've had so many people in private session where the guides have said, this is a great time to find a safe group of people that you can connect with online or otherwise and say, how about I just try this out on you? I think I might be a healer. I think I have the ability to, bring in a message. It's an amazing time on the planet right now to magnetize some people around you that are safe and to get a lot of feedback, a lot of communication to craft that path ahead. We're given the time right now to be able to do that, and that time is really valuable. I've also had some questions about timeline jumping and manifesting, and I want to bring that into the conversation because I mentioned the Schumann, and I know a lot of you who are here know that the Schumann has been extremely high. It's been, spiking and dipping, and we've had, going back even to 2017, 18, a lot of significant solar events that have contributed to this. And what we're finding is humans have installed this incredible new piece of their technology. It's called the Oversoul. And I speak about it a lot in my private classes. We just did a course, actually, Soul Alchemy, where we talked a lot about the Oversoul. And this is a part of us that hasn't been active in a very long time. Okay, so our vibrational technology has been dismantled in the same way we're dismantling the third dimension right now, but it's coming back together. And the really cool thing about this is we're receiving more and more cosmic data, insights, downloads, and information than ever before. It's like a telepathic sourcing for us of exactly what we need. The Oversoul it's like a precision technology. It helps us to bring in whatever is important for what challenges we face in the moment. We don't usually have conscious recognition of this as it's happening, like, my Arcturian self says that I need to do this, right? There's just some cosmic interplay and some alchemy going on that's helping us to become these new multidimensional or cosmic humans. And because of this, we have the ability to manifest really quickly because these soul fragments that come in, they vibrate so high. There are parts of us from other dimensions that hold a higher vibration that are coming to join the party here. And that has to have an effect on how we manifest. So the good news is, and I've seen this in session, people can literally have a thought or think something and it's showing up for them. The caveat to that is when we put it into the entire collective situation, that we have going on right now, it means that the instantaneous manifestation that we have can take us down the wrong path. There are multiple potentials embedded in this one experience. In the same way I said a soul contract is embedded in multiple decisions and reasons, this collective experience that we're having is multidimensional as well and carries multiple potentials that we can align with. This is personal as well as collective. And what that means is how we meet the energy in the present moment has within it the recipe for us to manifest the highest and best potential. There's a lot of fear, and a lot of people are talking about the fear. And I'm going to probably talk about this a little bit differently than what others have so far, because in the book that I've been editing, the guides are bringing in a concept called imprinting. And what that means is we imprint a timeline with a dominant vibration. So we might be in a collective situation for a couple of months. And in that couple of month time, every response, thought, and emotion that we have directed at that experience is a contributing factor to that imprint. So it's kind of like every reaction is added up in this universal calculator, and one imprint is formed by every human that dumps into this pool that affects this moving train. So here's the good news about that. It's okay for us to be in fear every now and then. Because if we try to suppress that fear and replace it with some false sense of positivity, we're only suppressing something that is meant to come back out somewhere else. And I personally believe that an uprising of fear on the planet can have a lot of positives for us. Because I guarantee that the fear that we are projecting at this target might actually be coming from other things that we've suppressed along the way that are fearful as well. So there's a mass clearing of density going on right now, which is actually a positive. So if we can keep in mind that if we go into the fear, we can always recalibrate and come back to center, we're going to affect and get into the neutrality zone of where that imprint is going to be formed. And so neutrality isn't that we don't feel. Neutrality is that we allow ourselves to consider all sides and work at the energy that we want to manifest and align with. And that means we get to stand up and brush ourselves off and start again tomorrow. And it means that tomorrow, if we can create something in our personal life that brings us joy and fulfillment, that energy could totally cancel out the fear that we felt yesterday. And I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind. If you can balance this in terms of what you're paying attention to and how much currency you're expending on the truth, and really stay in the present moment to create something that's positive for you, we're going to get through this just fine. And we're going to receive whatever purpose was in it for us simply by allowing ourselves the breath to stay in that present moment. Physical activity can be a really good one right now. And we talked about this on my inner circle, in my inner circle community on the Facebook Live. A lot of people are having a hard time meditating right now. And let's face it, we're all empaths and telepaths, and that's coming stronger and stronger than ever before. And you know, I myself have had a lot of distractions or difficulty trying to meditate at times as this energy has been, you know, rolling. And what I've chosen to do is get my hands dirty. I repotted some plants in the house. I made some vegan muffins the other day. I'm getting real present with those hands-on activities, things that I don't typically have time to do, but that really feel good to me. And that can be a profound way to shift the imprint of what's taking place in the collective. I know that many of us as light workers feel a responsibility right now to stop this moving train and to change it. But that also is, in some sense, restriction or restrictiveness. It's resistance to what is. We have to check ourselves too before we post on social media, or we make a YouTube video, or we're speaking to our family or friends. Because everything that we speak, everything that we feel is harmonic in nature. And I've been trying really hard, because the guides have brought in some advice for me personally on this, to maintain that harmonic for others. Our voice is a harmonic. And when we're really wound up in the fear or going down the rabbit hole, and we want to speak out on something, we can sometimes hear in our voice that high pitch or that really quick vibration that isn't peace or isn't really supportive and assisting, even though the information that we're sharing might be good. And that's where sometimes I think it's important for us to take a step back and take a breath before we share, before we speak, and feel into the energy and make sure that we're coming from a place of integrity and creating the path that we desire here on the planet. Because that imprinting does come from our emotions too. It's not just our thoughts. Thoughts and emotions together are like a recipe, technology that help us to manifest. It's not just the thoughts, but the emotion that we feel about the thought. And so if we can realize that the emotions are harmonic, we can be present with them and be observers of them and allow them to express without embedding them in something that is meant to serve. Right? And that's why I think it's so important that we constructively express the emotion and really bear witness to what's going on within us right now. I had a really profound message that I shared that I want to share again, because I want to capture it here before we go into the channeling. And it was from Mary Magdalene. And she's been channeling some transmissions through me very personally about her journey going into one of the most difficult assignments of her soul's linear timeline. And one of the things that she said was, early on as a young child, she was taught that there would be a time when we would purge through our bodies all of the density and the archetypal patterns and lineages to get them out of the way for some very profound experience that was coming. And that arrived for her. It felt like pain, and she would have these diseases or illnesses come up, and they'd be completely different. It was like she was manifesting one thing and then healing it, and something else would arise. And she was taught that if she were to entangle herself in the energy with some herbal remedy or some form of healing, that it would only get in the way of what was processing. And so she was taught as a young child that if she were to just bear witness to that energy, knowing that it wasn't necessarily all hers, but coming from the collective through her, that she would fare far better, and that this would pass far easier. And in my session work, and because I know so many of you personally who are out there, I can say with complete certainty that we are all conduits, crystalline conduits for moving energy on the planet. We have been encapsulated in a dismantled and old grid that was recycling karma and building up a lot of density that we really didn't need to experience here. We have a new grid now. And as that new grid is coming into position on the earth, many of us are holding the points. We're here on the earth in these different geographic regions as light workers, literally bearing witness to and transmuting the energies through our bodies, through our spirit. And if we can simply be present with what is and bear witness to it, we're going to fare far better than if we're to try to constantly shift it or change it physically. And that's really what I most desire for all of you, is to hold in that frequency of bearing witness and being present to. This is a time in which that restriction allows us the space to be present with what is in whatever way is best served by our bodies, by our spirit. Some of us are doing a little extra yoga and meditation. Some of us are getting our hands dirty in the garden or going for extra walks. Some of us are just resting a little extra. But that's okay. Because as we do that and we allow ourselves to be there without feeling this responsibility that we have to change, prove, or disprove something, that's where we're best aligned to support the new earth. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a trans-channel experience. Are you guys new? Anyone new to you've been here before? You're new? Okay. So are you aware you know what channeling is?
All right.
Okay. Well, good. Perfect. You're in the right place. So I'm a trance channel, and what that means is I go into a state where I bring in guides, beings, collectives, intergalactics, and they speak through me. So my mind kind of floats over there, my consciousness floats over there. I am an observer of the experience, although I often don't remember a lot of what comes through until I listen back to it. And what I do is I'll bring in a message that's best suited for everyone who's out there and in here, because we are live streaming today and we have a lot of people around the globe who are online. And then I'll take questions. So we have a very small group here in the room, which means we're going to open questions up, especially on the chat. So you can start posting them in the chat. And when it's time for questions, Ethan will read those. And any question is up for grabs, but we want to keep it more related to the collective, something that all humans can benefit from in this time. And we'll work with multiple guides, teachers, and masters. I'll always tell you who's here as they come in and out and who's speaking. And I twitch a little bit, shake a little bit when I channel. For those of you who are new, it's just the difference in vibration or energy between what's coming in and where we stand here on the earth in our physical bodies. It's just a way that I can adjust the energies. Okay, and we are going to begin with the Council of Light. And we're very pleased to step forward today. We are a collective of multidimensional beings and races. We are 12th dimensional. And it is our assignment to oversee the universal grid system. What that means is we are observing to ensure that energy that passes through from the earth to other dimensions and back is in the highest integrity and not able to affect or have a disadvantageous ramification, and something that is being created elsewhere. And we want to explain that first in relationship to what's going on your planet, because many of you may be wondering how the experience that you're having here is being observed and perhaps handled or supported by many of us who are in other dimensions. And we want to begin by stating that we understand from both a vibrational as well as an Akashic standpoint that if we were to get involved in earthly timelines and change the physical manifestation of what is taking place, that we would override so many personal timeline experiences that are woven in and connected to this collective manifestation, that it would preclude further awakening to take place. We say that, of course, with the utmost respect for humanity and the challenge or transition at hand, because we understand that as humans, this is something that is quite difficult for many of you. Yet, we want to explain why vibrationally there is an uprising of energetic discordance at this time, and how it relates to the new grid activation, to the Earth's meridians, and the new dimensional frequencies that you have already put in place. And we want to give an analogy first, that within your physical bodies, not unlike within Gaia Sophia herself, there are channels and meridians that are moving energy between organs and tissues and cells. There is a nervous system and a brain that sends electromagnetic signals to support your ability to be a physical being in constant alignment But we know you understand at times there is a breakdown of this system within your body. You may have a broken bone, for example, and surrounding that broken bone are cells and tissues. There may even be nearby organs, but there is also a disconnection of a meridian that may be channeling information. As that bone is reset, or perhaps even if you have some type of surgical procedure, you may understand that the nerves are severed and not able to send signals in the way that they did before. You may even for a time have some numbness in the area. But what begins to happen as the bone begins to heal and things are reset is that a new electromagnetic connection is being made. That energy or the area of the illness may hold the dense experience of how it was injured. It may remember for quite some time that there was a trauma that was unexpected. But regardless of what it remembers, beneath the surface, the body itself is beginning the process of reconnecting these very intricate pathways that send information and energy to support healing. And in the same way, we see the new grid connection to your planet going through a similar process. We've mentioned many times that the Earth has been encapsulated, and that encapsulation has kept humanity somewhat repeating the same energetic patterns over and over again. In fact, we believe that some of the Akashic history that you've been experiencing has yet to be ascended because you haven't had the means to channel the energy, not unlike in your physical bodies, to support a different consciousness or perception of that energy that molds and shapes it into something new. Well, in the installation of the new grid, there are what we can define are a variety of phases. Not unlike in your industrial processes, for example, in order to physically create an automobile, there may be different phases of implementation from the original envisioning of this new automobile to the planning stages and the measurements and the testing and research to the actual assembly of the parts. And as this new grid has been created by many of you, and we'll start there, the new grid that is present, that is already anchored to the earth, has been created by all of you. What that means is that in your personal lives, you already have fifth dimensional potentials that you have created or have fully manifested that have allowed the new grid to take shape. It is like the envisioning of the new automobile that has taken place in your own personal lives. Well, the envisioning was a very important part. Non-physically, it brought in a new sacred design. And it began alchemically to connect to the meridians and channels within Gaia, and new information began to flood to the earth. But not unlike that broken bone and the period of time that it takes for all of those reconnections to be made, there is often a lag time. There can be things that stand in the way of full implementation. For example, the consciousness in the body may remember the trauma of the accident. And until that trauma is released, the full connection cannot be made to heal that area. And this is what we see humanity in the midst of currently. It is removing the dense energy that stands in the way of the full implementation of the connection to the new grid, to the meridians of Gaia Sophia herself. Now, this is a mass clearing, and we certainly don't want to put it in the light of something that you have caused. But at the same time, it would not do humanity justice if we were not to explain the vibrational process that has caused this to come to the surface. And it is quite complex. So we want to break it down in a series of steps. As we have mentioned, in the third dimension, you are recycling Akashic history. That Akashic history took place in your singular timelines as patterns, and collectively as well as collective manifestations and events. You can see how this manifestation aligns directly with ones that you have both anticipated would come again, as well as ones that you've already experienced. Perhaps not personally, but most certainly in other timelines. Now, whenever there is a collective timeline, such as a pandemic or a war, it only comes to the surface because all humans have matched its manifestation for some very significant purpose. So in the third dimension, as you were encapsulated, the purpose was to raise your consciousness and to cause enough awakening to allow that grid to dismantle. And we certainly believe that as humans, you have reached beyond what many of you would define as the tipping point for that old grid to dismantle. Yet, at the same time, in order to hold a higher dimension here, it is of great importance that all humans experience some movement of energy that no longer serves them. And we see a crossroads of sorts that has gone on within your personal codes as well as within the Earth's coding herself. We want to explain exactly what we are speaking to when we refer to codes. Codes are simply triggers that are vibrationally aligned with by planets and stars that humans either hold personally and have agreed to before coming, or have manifested as a part of their human collective. Coming in as a part of the human race, you all have similar collective codes embedded within your structure, meaning as the planets and stars realign, you are offered collective passageways or gateways to upgrade. In your personal lives, you experience this as what many of you call karma, and we agree that karma is coded within you before you arrive. Its job is to keep you moving deliberately and expansively on your path as human souls. So what if, in the midst of a new grid implementation, there was such a high vibration that was reached that something in the third dimensional Akashic field came to the surface because a code was met between all of you that allowed you to meet it in the moment with the consciousness that you had attained. We want you to imagine right now your souls agreeing to meet cosmic history at the same time with some grander perspective that you knew you would reach. And when the moment was precisely right, would come together and allow that to pass through you as conduits of a new earth. We call it a cosmic code because what you're experiencing on the earth right now is not an earthly experience alone. We've alluded to the fact, of course, that it comes from your human history, your human Akashic field. But you have also reached such an incredible point in your vibrational history that you're now accessing and matching experiences from other dimensions that your soul has been through as well. Now, these have been massive clearings of the earth, for example. These have been mass weather events, for example. It doesn't necessarily mean that the experience of disease that you're having now is a disease that you had in other dimensions. We're calling for you to look at the experience not as defined by something physical, but as a culmination of energies coming together in a vortex that is meant to siphon through parts of you that can no longer be present, at the same time clearing massive amounts of karmic density that may no longer be present here to anchor the fifth dimension. Now, if this code exists and all of you are experiencing the same reality for the same purpose, yet designed to receive something unique, what you can guarantee is that you chose to come in at this time because you understood that there was some very purposeful offering that you had to humanity that would be catalyzed through this experience. And we say that with the most confidence that we can share vibrationally with you through the tones of this channel's voice. That we perceive all of you choosing this timeline because you knew it would be the catalyst for so much growth on the planet, that rising up within would be a series of connections and creative outlets for you to set in motion a chain of events. And that chain of events, although looking very difficult for you to put into action now, is not something that you have to strive for in this moment. This is the beauty of what we see taking place on your planet today. This process is something that is working through a lineage. We will call it a wellspring of Akashic history in one timeline reality, while at the same time allowing you a bandwidth of clarity to activate your personal gifts and abilities as humanity is ready to now receive them. As we speak to many of you, we know that those that gather for this transmission are the ones who may be on the leading edge of this experience. And we hold the space for you as we have gone through similar transitions in many of our star systems as well, to understand that the way that your energy is held is best served in this moment to assist the collective. We know that many of you desire to put physical steps in motion, and especially to put a stop to this energy that is snowballing through the collective. And we hold that desire for you as well, yet understand that it may play out in far more comfort than what many of you have chosen to experience. We see the split of timelines upon the earth not being a separate earth of those who do not awaken, but we see it as being the difference between those who suffer and those who allow the transition at hand to carry them to the beauty and grace of a new reality that has been envisioned for quite some time, that many of you have strived so hard to create here upon the planet, but are bringing into your personal lives in solitude to now amplify it further into the collective, such that as you step outside of the cocoon that you are now embodied within, you are advanced in the multidimensional energies that we see in the color of the wings of the butterfly. And as we hold this vision for you, we ask that you only hold it for yourselves in the best way possible. And that many of us are here to serve, not by changing your reality, but by assisting you to maintain this frequency that we are speaking of. Because regardless of what you are paying attention to in physical, the manifestation of technologies, for example, or mass restrictions, you are all influencing those in each moment. And what that means is there could be no prediction at this time of how these things will play out. We can only look at the present moment scenario and, of course, see many potentials. but we choose the one that we believe is the harmonic best matching that of Earth in this time. And that harmonic has its stronghold in the elemental sound of sovereignty. This is what is amplifying through the Earth in this time. Often we see the polarity of light and dark at times when we are advancing ourselves forward. We have the ultimate choice to tune into the darkness or tune into the light. And regardless of what we choose, being in the midst of both of them simultaneously gives us the ultimate advantage, because light and dark is embedded within every experience. And what that means is if a technology is going to manifest to the highest intent, we are the ones who create that by how we perceive its future manifestation. We have been very pleased and honored to offer this transmission for the collective today. We are very pleased also to take your questions.
My question relates to what I feel is a forced vaccination program coming down the line, which is making me extremely nervous. I have no fear of the virus itself, but a fear of the vaccines and our civil liberties being taken away. I'd love to hear your thoughts in this and any advice you may have. And what if it comes down to a forced vaccine program? How can we avoid this?
We are the Pleiadian collective, and it is very important that we address this situation from several different standpoints, because again, we know that you are tuning into one potential when there are many. And we agree that what is happening on your planet is a series of restrictions that are designed for you to rise up and create the solutions that many humans have felt unwilling or unsafe in accepting. And we know that although there are restrictions already in place in regards to vaccination, there are some that are very consciously aware of the ramifications of these vaccinations, but because of the consequences of taking an alternative route, will succumb to them anyway. And although we offer that this ideal of succumbing to authority regardless of consciousness is something that feels safe to many, it could never continue on the planet in the form that it has already been. Meaning that there has been so much awakening that has come to be that if you are one who has reached a certain vibration but are not yet willing to step outside of the bounds of government restriction, you are holding on to a reality that is continuing to restrict. In other words, the most important action and reaction having to do with the manifestation of a mandatory vaccine requirement is the way it's responded to internally and externally. So we become participants in future manifestations before they even arise, based on how we perceive the outer world and what may happen to us if we do not succumb to something that we are in fear of. Now, we want to give our perspective of the potentials. And this is, again, a complex vision that many humans have a difficult time wrapping their mind around, because as linear humans, you see black or white. You see a mandatory vaccine requirement, or you see the opposite, the freedom to choose. What we believe is going to happen over the course of the next couple linear years is a variety of manifestations in pockets of consciousness where this will begin to show itself. Now, understand that we see how many locations and geographic regions on your planet have already restricted this activity. And this is an example of how we see this continuing to manifest. What has happened in those areas, though, is something that we must point out from a vibrational and physical standpoint. We have seen the spirit of humanity come together to find loopholes and pathways outside of very restrictive circumstances. In fact, we have seen also Lightworkers come together to create alternative schools, which take outside of the context of a mandatory vaccine law so many other benefits that humanity needs to receive, or future generations, especially those that are very extra sensitive, needed to interact with at this time. We know that as humanity continues to be restricted in the way it is participating with its personal health freedoms, there are so many on your planet who are on assignment to create these new scenarios, whether they be very simplistic avenues for avoiding these restrictions, or whether they simply be new communities and ways of living that no longer accept these government restrictions. These are going to be the benefits of what is happening. Know that the vaccine agenda that is on your planet is more of a DNA hybridization intention than it is to toxify the human body. There is a lot of collective consciousness that we believe is focused upon the mutation of the human DNA, that mutation taking humans outside of the realm of unity consciousness and further awakening, and keeping them suppressed in the third dimension. In addition, we know that many of you understand there is a collective of rainbow and crystalline children who are manifesting here to create the new earth with new technologies, healing approaches, and ideas for community. There is also a suppressive energy that is focused upon them, not coming from any one direction, but certainly coming from a collective consciousness that still exists here upon the planet. If you are to seclude yourself and separate yourself or restrict your personal freedoms out of fear, you are feeding into this collective consciousness and offering it exactly what it needs to maintain its strength. It is not the vaccine agenda that is the problem or that is causing humanity to be suppressed. It is the way that humanity lets go of its personal freedoms and sovereignty, stepping outside of the bounds of strengthening collective consciousness that is already raised to a point on your planet that would support the new earth to continue. So we believe that each of you on the planet are going to interact with this in your own personal and unique ways, that many of you who have young children are choosing to be on this timeline right now because your decisions are going to be the catalysts for what will manifest in the new earth. And we want you to begin to feel within the strength and power that that statement holds for you now, knowing that looking down upon an earthly decision to come into a physical body and experience something like this was known by you because the mastery that you embodied would be the catalyst for changing it. That is the most profound message that we can bring to you today. So in simplicity, and in conclusion, we want to add this. If you are to stay in the present moment with the situation at hand, you will fare far better when it comes to the collective manifestation of further restrictions. The reason for this is your anticipation and fear around what will arrive is actually choosing a potential in this moment. And we know this is not the potential that you desire. So if you cannot hold a positive potential for humanity, bringing yourself into the present moment and distracting the mind and the emotional body from the arrival of something that you do not desire is the best course of action to take.
What is happening to our nervous system? It's painful at times. If we're not to interfere, how do we get through it? And a second related question, please give some tips to control anxiety.
Yes. So we want to bring in a couple of different collectives for this question because we know that many of you understand you are multidimensional beings in a physical body, and you are in one of the most significant physical and non-physical transitions of your entire lifetime. What that means is the body itself is beginning to morph into a new form. The original blueprint or template for the physical body is something that we want to explain to you. And we are a multiple collective of cedar beings that are hybrids that have come from multiple dimensions who have been on your planet at the time that humanity was born. Before even coming to the earth, there was an original vision for how the human race would operate. There was a soul, there was a higher self, and an oversoul. And what that means is that you were a singular being on an earthly and cosmic journey simultaneously. And as a human soul, your body would experience challenges, changes, and transitions that may not be of comfort to you, but that would electromagnetically be supported in ways that would always keep that body archetype ascending and strengthening. Well, the nervous system is something that truly comes into this original blueprint. And we will explain it to you this way. The nervous system is like an alchemical harmonic adjuster. What it's designed to do is sense what's going on in its physical environment, to receive feedback, and to stabilize itself to any present moment experience. As humans were designed, there was an understanding that they were quantum beings in constant coherence, and that the nervous system would support and assist them. We'll bring in the concept of fight or flight. We know that many of you understand this definition medically and otherwise. When the body is in fight or flight, there is a reason for that. There may be immediate danger that is happening that the nervous system is preparing the body to respond to. It is preparing the mind to respond. And there are feats of great magic and strength that many of you are aware of that have happened in moments of fight or flight when you are able to stay in the present moment. There are stories of humans who have lifted automobiles off a human body simply because that fight or flight response was receiving the energy and alchemizing to what was needed to create that strength in the body. But what's happened through time here is that there has been a hybridization away from this original blueprint. And we don't want to go into too much history about reptilian consciousness, but we will explain it this way. You were seated as a member of a very benevolent reptilian collective that was present at the time of your seating. And much of the components of the reptilian mind that are actually a very beneficial manifestation when working in concert with all parts of you has been distorted and interrupted. What it has done has taken you out of that quantum coherence. And it has falsely focused you upon the past or the future as being the catalyst for the now. So what the nervous system has become very vulnerable to is distortions and communications outside of the present moment that are constantly repeated. As a matter of fact, we believe that the nervous system has become weakened in its ability to maintain that coherence or strength in the body, which has caused a degradation of many of your physical processes. So as extrasensory beings are increasing their telepathy, they are receiving more of the responses around them within the collective. But with the nervous system that has begun to operate in such, we'll say, a false or distorted way, it is compounding your ability to find that peace in the present moment that anchors within the body. Anxiety is one manifestation of this. We look at anxiety as a manifestation of a human potential to align with false realities. Anxiety is coming from a consciousness perceiving false potentials that vibrate in ways that match your compromised nervous system. So in order to combat this right now, which we believe is not an easy task, we do want to give you some recommendations and certainly make them very simple and ground them in ways that are supportive for you as you walk through the coming weeks. First, it's important for you not to make this too complicated. Any spiritual process or program that you're embarking on right now, unless it's in full resonance with your soul as something that is required to advance your higher learning, is something that you should avoid. What we see is humans are attempting to resolve the problem. They are getting outside of the realm of what's happening in the now and attempting to vibrationally and physically change things while they're in resistance. When you are in resistance to what is, you are often making choices that aren't in the highest and best benefit for your soul. The nervous system and the mind are deeply connected. And we bring in the breath as a catalyst for you. Before you communicate, before you share, before you choose an activity, take a breath and slow down in your physical choices. And this breath is something that is so important because what the mind requires in order to really come into a beneficial position with your nervous system and vibrational structure is to get out of that fight or flight response. When you are in fight or flight, the mind is not something that is involved, and that is purposeful. Because in order to lift the car off of a human body, if you were to pause and take a thought, it would negate your belief in what you were just about to do. So in the pause, what happens is the fight or flight response can now be set aside and the mind can come in a very advantageous way. We bring in the analogy of the higher self as well because we believe many of you have brought the higher self container back online. The higher self is a collective part of you. It utilizes parts of you from other timelines on the earth that are advantageous to support you in the now. And it can actually bring in a frequency of peace or calm in the midst of very difficult collective experiences. You activate the higher self through the pause and through the breath. So we simply say, as you are making choices right now, especially as to what you pay attention to, what you think or what you create, any activities that you out, bring in the breath. And always default to something very simplistic. In the simplicity of what you bring in, you are letting go of the complexity of what's happening on the planet, taking you out of the realm of the present moment. In addition to this, and this is the Arcturian collective coming in, I welcome them. It is important for us to also suggest that the vagus nerve is a catalyst for clearing so many of the discordant patterns and misfirings of the nervous system that we see going on within humanity right now. The reason for this is the vagus nerve is a very interconnected and sacred channel or pathway that runs parallel to an energy portal that through the crown and all the way to the root is sending vibrational signals. As you activate the vagus nerve, which on many of you has been taken offline, you are helping to suppress the activity of the past or the future that has no place in the now. And this vagus nerve knows exactly what to do to clear that energy and bring it back into coherence. When you are activating the vagal nerve through toning, for example, through meditation, or through some physical activity, which is very important and simplistic to carry out, you have a natural ability to come back into alignment and peace. The vagus nerve is often looked at as a very complex structure that needs to be activated through the breath. We believe this is one way that you can certainly do this. Toning and chanting and utilizing the vocal cords that run through the throat chakra are a very significant way to also activate the vagal nerve because it operates on vibration and harmonic. And finally, physical movement of any kind. The simplistic movements of a Tai Chi or a Qigong, or immersing yourself in some physical outdoor activity fully will activate the nervous system and the vagus to come back into balance. Now, I'll leave you with one final message. The pineal gland also is a valuable tool for many of you at this time, and we give it to you as a sacred portal through which you can utilize a movie or some type of play to support your physical and emotional responses. If you choose to sit in meditation and to cultivate or create pleasant images of yourself in different scenarios, your body will mimic those visions. This is the perfect time for humanity to practice this, and it will have a very significant effect on your anxiety as well as fear vibration that is in the body.
So when the flash happens to the awake, what will be the reality for the 3D family members, for instance?
Well, understand, and this is the Pleiadian collective, they're very pleased. Understand that although humanity is a one race, what has happened here is the deconstruction or separation of a sacred design. You have been operating outside of unity consciousness, which is why there has been a focus on the self. Because of this, what we notice is there are pockets of consciousness that have evolved that are manifesting separate of the whole. And when there is a timeline such as this, a very collectively focused one, it is affecting different pockets of consciousness differently, and everyone is creating their own hologram that bleeds into a greater collective one. That being said, the third dimension is not going to be existent anymore on this planet as you move through the end of what we see the linear years of 2020. What that means is you are moving so quickly into a higher dimension that the construct of the third dimension itself is such a slower speed that it can no longer fully exist. So if you are holding on as a family or as an individual to parts of the third dimension that are no longer present, you will still be in a fifth dimensional reality, but not be in a state of joy, fulfillment, or peace. It is kind of like being in the scenario that you're in now, but everyone else is experiencing a different reality, something that is more stable. And we certainly see this taking place on your planet in the moment. Although there is a collective fearful transition taking place, some of you are immersed in your own personal hologram in such joy and peace that you are experiencing it completely differently than others who are in the same collective as you. So it's not a matter of those humans or families leaving the planet physically, for example, but it is the awakening of their soul and the ability to choose the new manifestations that are coming that will be the prefaces for how they are able to maintain fulfillment and joy as a human soul. We see entry and exit points as a soul comes into a physical body. And this is Archangel Gabriel, I welcome him. We talk about this oftentimes when humans have questions about relationships. Relationship contracts have multiple entry and exit points. And what that means is there is a time of review. There's a time in which the soul is reviewing its experience and either willing to choose a new path or staying in the realm of uncomfort because it is something that is known. What we can say right now as we anticipate this change is that the amount of resistance in those that aren't choosing the fifth dimension will not keep the third dimension alive, but will just keep that collective from moving as quickly vibrationally into the new reality that is being created. And that is going to cause some difficulty. Let's give you a parallel that we see right now, actually in an opposite direction. Many of you understand that there are hybrid children who have entered in various forms. Some of them are more human than hybrid, and some of them are rainbow and crystal. Some of them are having quite a difficult time adjusting to the densities that exist on the planet, to the degree that they have been diagnosed with certain physical and emotional ailments, and in some respect are suffering with those diagnoses. Now, this is what we see going on in the third dimension as the fifth comes into being, is those that are still remaining from the third, if they are not willing to transition and move out of the realm of safety or what their soul knew before, will then take over some type of collective diagnosis or range of physical or emotional difficulty that is precluding their ability to be in balance. As we say this, we also remind you that we are looking at what is happening now, which is a very fast-moving energy. We acknowledge that there are multiple potentials for humanity, but also acknowledge that we don't see two separate Earths forming or an exit point where many will manifest into a different holographic reality. What is happening right now is there are multiple holographic realities intersecting with each other, and we think that there's going to be a leveling out of that. Humans are not meant to remain in separate holographic realities because unity consciousness requires that all humans are vibrating in the same dimension. And as that begins to unfold, so will these potentials that we have also tuned into and change accordingly.
Should we be concerned with 5G technology?
We are the Arcturian Collective, and it's important also that we address this question from various standpoints. We want to look at technology first as a manifestation of your consciousness. And as many of the messages have come forth today through the council and otherwise, it has been clear that humanity is manifesting its outer hologram. Technologies are also coming from the Akashic field, not unlike the manifestation of a disease or a pandemic. There is a repeat energy, things that rise to the surface, that come again because humanity is meant to mold and shape them into something new. And it is the way that you interact and your level of consciousness that is the determining factor for any technology to come into being. We see 5G as something that is manifesting as a third dimensional construct of your reality, but having so much energetic currency being thrown at it in such a negative way that it's holding that imprint as it continues to manifest. Now, the question is, should you be concerned? And as the Arcturians, we have modeled and mapped the way in which different technologies affect the human structure. Not unlike the message from the council about the grid system that is present within the universe and within Earth, your magnetic grids are electric as well. And any man-made frequencies, discordant or otherwise, have a tremendous effect on the way you are able to moderate the nervous system and the connections between the brain and the heart. But at the same time, we cannot deny that there is also a manifestation of multiple timelines embedded within this one. Many of you understand that there is a concern about the disease cancer being related to the frequencies that are embedded within this technology. Now, what we see playing out in addition to the disease that many of you are in fear of, the pandemic, for example, is that there is an alchemy taking place at the soul level within each and every one of you. You have reached a point in your vibration whereby whatever no longer matches your frequency is being purged vibrationally at the moment. But the energy must be met somewhere. You are physical souls that are also non-physical. And what that means right now is that if something is rising up within you, like the purging of a discordant disease or archetypal lineage, you may be coming across it in your personal experience or within manifestations in the collective such that it can be transmuted. The attention that is now being placed upon 5G, being a proponent to resolve something that has gone on for generations of time that has been looked at as very physical, which is a non-physical manifestation at its core. Concern that you have is something that we acknowledge, but also want to direct your attention to the very high potential cosmic technologies that many of you are already aware of and have manifested on Earth. We see mass opportunities right now to intersect with cosmic past and future timeline manifestations in which there is a mirror opposite of what 5G is bringing to your planet. If you are a vibrational being and there is something that comes to affect the sound or the harmonic of your vibration in a negative way, there must at the same time be a manifestation of the solution of that problem. And we encourage every unique human to get in touch with their vibration and to understand how different elemental properties, sounds, and vibration can have a positive effect or clearing of the manifestation of some discordance. This is ultimately what we see this timeline bringing forth, because it will come to light that this technology is something that is not in the highest and best interest of humanity. But know that as you reach the mid-2020s, much of what is manifested here is going to dismantle. And so even as you are seeing perhaps a manifestation of something in abundance that isn't for your greatest health, there may be some technology being put in place that is going to come along with you, alchemize and change differently in the fifth dimension. For example, many of you have created things in your personal lives that you believe have gone to waste. But where you stand now could not have been had those things not have been created. What you are doing is not severing the cords to what you've created in the past or trying to obliterate the past. What you are doing is taking what is manifested as the tool for uncovering your greatest strengths within and using them as the human story or the condition of what you came to heal. So unless there is something to challenge you to move forward and constantly ascend, as humanity, we see the technology that we've spoken about in the blueprint that's been disassembled has caused you to stay very stagnant, to stay in the realm of safety and what is known. So some of these manifestations, although we know they are not to your liking, can be looked at as advancing humanity's awakening forward and calling towards the already positive solutions and technologies that exist that will replace, and even in some circumstances, hybridize with what's being created now to advance telepathy and to actually support the human body.
Energetically, what can we do to calm the fears in the world?
Yes, we're the Pleiadians. We know that many of you are very well intentioned and are coming together to meditate as a one collective, and we have great appreciation for your desire to utilize your vibration as a tool to change realities. We believe that what's happening right now on your planet is such a potent stream of vibrational energy that any focus upon it is going to cause it to move in the wrong direction. And this is something that we give you very lightly, not to put you in fear. We understand it is necessary for you to have knowledge, to be informed, such that you can realign your physical lives in ways that match your responsibilities. But when it comes to non-physical, we think that the best practice is to come together and focus outside of the holographic realm of this timeline. What that means is not to meditate for the purpose of stalling the virus, not to meditate to send light to the virus. Again, although very well intentioned, this is a strengthening of any energy that is currently present on your planet. But to actually vision and focus into the new reality that you so desire to strengthen. Perhaps if it is a group that is coming together to meditate, to have some type of mantra that is distracting the mind, that is spoken or sung, some breath practice that is utilized and concentrated on, or some very elaborate vision, even of a portal or a location that all of you are visiting together that may be off-planet or perhaps within the inner caverns of Gaia Sophia herself, that bring you to a state of peace and take you outside of the realm of what is happening right now on the planet. Many of you may feel as if this negates your ability and desire to respond or to uphold your responsibility to changing the path of this timeline. And we are here to say that the collective manifestation of this is one of the strongest we have seen in many, many years of observing your planet. And because of that, the stepping outside of the realm of it constantly and daily is the best approach that you can take vibrationally to allow it to transition. And as we say this, we must also commend you, because we see where you have already put into motion a chain of events that is slowing its speed. That doesn't mean that it deconstructs and ends tomorrow. In a Akashic timeline this significant is gaining steam in many different dimensions. And because of that, what you may find is there will be a stalling of the timeline for a period and then a resurgence of that energy because what has been put in motion is so strong. But if you see this, this is the recognition of the work you have done. In other words, if you see a waning and then a spike, you know that that waning came from your ability to step outside of the realm of the focus on that energy and to create a new one. Because this is how you slow the speed. It is not by immersing and entangling yourself in the same energy, even if it is through a very succinct intention, but that you have stepped outside of the energy so much that it can no longer manifest in the same speed. We actually must make a temporary, we'll say, prediction that we already see this taking place. And that is why we commend you so much. We see the wave pattern that exists within this one timeline. And the wave itself is although going to cause a few more interactions within different geographic locations that feel restrictive in nature, is really just a manifestation of what happened before. And if you can approach it that way, meaning when there are restrictions that are placed upon your families or within your geographic regions, that you're simply seeing the manifestation of a past energy, you will fare far better with the pattern that you've already put into motion.
Can you give us some positive potential outcomes so we can ponder and imagine them over the worry and fear?
Yes, so we are Mary Magdalene, and we are very pleased to step in and to offer this vision because it is one that we have seen ourselves and we have utilized as a tool to prepare ourselves for some of the most challenging circumstances that many of the Ascended Masters who are here have faced upon your planet. When humanity comes together as one and it's able to exist in unity consciousness, it does not mean that there are no challenges that are faced. And as we say that, your higher self lets down the need to see a reality that is free of difficulty. Because we believe that change and transition are some of the most greatest gifts that each of you has agreed to participate in while you are here. But what we would love for you to imagine is how challenge and transition is actually supported differently on your planet than it ever has been before. When we speak of unity consciousness, we see a planet in which all humans are willing to offer the same service in different frequencies, at different speeds, at different times, that is purposeful to support whatever arises. In other words, you are each a unique manifestation of consciousness that comes in with a unique offering and are free and able to support humanity without any tie to physical abundance or material. And as you are, that material manifests simply through your willingness to choose this. You will have at your fingertips a plethora of support and connection that is the material that you have placed as physical or monetary that shows up as human. We see right now that the plants, the animals, and the elements are recalibrating in this moment to a more pure and clear state of coherence. You are in this moment literally retemplating and vibrationally programming the planet back to its origins. As you step outside of the responsibilities that tied you to a false identity, you have the opportunity to reconnect with the truth of who you truly are. So the vision that we see is every human operating in their truth to the degree that that truth is required by every other human. It is a state of equilibrium and balance where there is no more or no less held by any one human. There is no judgment or restriction based on gender or race. Even within you, there is no measurement that can be held up to your creative offering that can quantify it in terms of material. Imagine you interacting in that amount of integrity with other humans, but also receiving it as well. We have envisioned our experience like a crystalline container. Even as young children in the ancient mystery schools, we were taught by some of the enlightened Atlanteans and hybrid souls about how to envision the cosmic collective communities that we had been a part of previously before coming to the earth. How it felt to vibrate in a one field of energy, and how in that oneness, we realized that there was no separation, but we were a significant part of something so incredibly massive. All of you have the unique vision within that is required. It is not one that we can give you. We simply say, go within yourself and feel into the vision that sparks the most joy, or the chills that runs up the back of your spine, that is confirmation of a remembrance of something that you encoded within your divine plan long before coming. The things that bring you joy are those that have most been restricted by you. And now you are being restricted from the things that have suppressed that joy so that you may find it again. And as you connect to the self, that is the only relevant vision to hold. So as we come together to offer you this transmission, we are sending a frequency that is unique and encoded with your highest joy to take you into your personal journeys and to go with you on those journeys as we are invited to support and assist you in your personal becoming.
Is there any event around the globe in 2020 that we should pay attention to?
We are the Council of Light, and it is important for us to define this definition or concept of the event. And we know that if you look back at history, and especially what some of your advanced teachers through time and collectives have left behind, you can see a common thread or a pattern through which there was a significant event or a catalyst for change. And we deeply acknowledge that many of those patterns have come to pass again, and that although they still exist in the Akashic records, you are not the same humans in a similar timeline as the ones that experienced those events. So many of the messages that have come through from conduits and intuitives about the event are messages that are offering, we'll say, a reference of a grander or massive picture of what this timeline is truly uncovering. Many of you are advanced souls. You have been on the planet in multiple incarnations. Some of you have not chosen the earth to evolve your soul, but are very advanced in the cosmic universe. There is often a point that you come to in your linear timeline where there is a collision of multiple soul fragments from other timelines that join together as a catalyst. And this catalyst is often a great awakening. It may be a time in your life where you are accessing gifts and abilities or having psychic or spiritual experiences, and your physical reality begins to quickly change. Imagine that event taking place on a mass scale. This linear timeline that many of you are on is so different than the ones that you've been on in the past that there are multiple events colliding at once. So there is no one event that we can define for you as coming in linear year 2020, but what we can say is we believe it was the impetus or the gateway through which this collision took place. And there are a series of vibrational reasons for this collision. Within you, at the soul level, as we have mentioned, there is an alchemy of parts of you from other timelines joining together as a catalyst to move you forward. At the level of the collective, there is a massive realignment between an old grid and a new grid system. What that means is you're still dealing with history from the past while you are matching and bringing in cosmic history you've experienced before. In addition to this, there have been very significant solar events that we believe are the most important catalysts for how your crystalline DNA and the chakras have come back online to support the reconnection of the oversoul and higher self. This is why there are so many things that are going on right now on your planet and within your personal experiences that are events in their own right. So if we were to make a prediction about what you are experiencing in linear year 2020, we would say it is both a dismantling and a rebuilding process that is taking place energetically and physically. The physical part of this is focused on the collective because the dismantling of your own lives for many of you has happened throughout the previous many years. So the dismantling that we see going on at the level of the collective is, as we've mentioned in the opening transmission, a bringing down or a leveling out of hierarchies that have been upholding vibrational structures that are collective in nature. At the same time, we see that many of you already have anchored fifth dimensional potentials that exist in the new grid. And in order for you to reach those and ground them with great potential, meaning that they will source for you and expand on the planet, you are going through a very significant non-physical transition to meet them. And in this moment, it is your choice, your willingness to align with these events, however you so choose, to bring in those unique potentials that are going to serve humanity.
I'm curious if you have some insights as to how to handle the three-dimensional financial crisis and/or other negative ramifications of the current climate.
Yes, we are the Council of Light, and we want to first offer an analogy to you that is the non-physical basis for what is happening. And we will go back to, prior to this transmission, a definition that was offered about imprinting. Everything that you've manifested here in physical is imprinted in an energy, and that energy may hold a specific dimension. What that means is your monetary system and your physical currency holds an imprint. We see that imprint being a very dense and suppressive energy. It is manipulated by a reptilian collective that has placed it in a hierarchical structure and has caused you to focus on it through the mind as something that takes you outside of the realm of your divine birthright to source as a sovereign human being, and has focused you more significantly in masculine energy, which has been a dominant physical focus. Now, many of you, as you know, have been activating more and more of your non-physical structures. You have been carrying out a variety of processes, going through a variety of transitions that have focused you more on feminine. And that feminine energy being the spiritual, and especially the focus on the emotional body and some of the most discordant energies that you've resisted through time. What you're doing right now is re-imprinting everything that you've manifested in the third dimension to a new potential. So the way that you perceive money today, the way you perceive your monetary system and your government, for many of you, is quite different than you've perceived it even a few linear years ago. You have awakened to things, true or not true, or partially true, about what is taking place on your planet. And this has caused a new imprint to form around the vibrational currency that makes up your economic system. Even the businesses that many of you see in jeopardy of this economic crisis, some of them ones that were not operating in the highest and best interest of humanity. And we'll stop there to say that there's a filtering system when it comes to imprinting energy. Remember, you're moving more into unity consciousness. You're becoming more balanced in masculine and feminine. You are integrating physical, non-physical, spiritual, and mental. Everything that's manifested, whether it be a business, whether it be a material, has imprinted some form of unity coherence. What that means is it's either supporting where you are heading, or it is not in support of where you are heading. And we believe that once this transition takes place, some of the businesses that are already imprinted in high integrity or unity consciousness are going to come out stronger on the other side than where they were before, because they are going through an alchemy as well. In the same way that some of what is failing and dropping away is necessary, their alchemy to expand is going to be shown as more humans magnetize the needs that they are purporting to serve. Economically speaking, as a fifth dimensional consciousness, you cannot walk into that dimension with a currency system that is so densely focused in masculine and inequality. In the fifth dimension, which is a portal to multiple dimensional consciousness, all humans manifest straight from source energy without conditions. Now, that does not mean that you are walking through a transition where you must let go of every condition in order to receive, but that you're realigning yourself to the services and the unique offerings that are in the highest intention, such that that monetary system can come in and support you to match your frequency. Now, I know that we know that many of you hold a direct relationship to family members, especially, and contracts that are responsible for material support. And this is a time on your planet where that material support is receiving so much fear, because there are some that believe they will not be able to uphold it for themselves, or family members that rely upon them. What we believe is the best focus for those of you who are feeling this way is to let go of the resistance that you feel to what is now leaving your energy field. There is a surrender that we want to speak of, and it is a very powerful alignment. And surrender is a word that we use very lightly, because it is not surrender to your responsibilities. It is not surrender to the acknowledgement of the upholding of your contracts and relationships. But it is a surrender of your will and need to control the outcome of what is happening that truly allows this new abundance and opportunity to flow to you. And we already see it happening in very simplistic ways that you may not recognize. For example, there are some humans who have not been able to return to an office or business scenario, who are finding new and creative ways to do their work that are reaching humans remotely. Not only is this offering more freedom in terms of their linear time, but it's re-imprinting how they receive, simply because they are willing to change the way they are doing something. When you are resistant to what is falling away, and not a willing participant in moving towards the solution, you are held separate of source energy, because there is a tendency to restrict. And what we desire for you in this time is to expand as much as possible, to be willing participants in creating a new stream of revenue in some creative way that perhaps would not have been thought of before. Now, this is not the end-all be-all of the fifth dimension, but it energetically precludes the way that humanity has in the past gone through times of suppression economically and struggled through those periods. Because economically, what's happening is there is a balancing system that is being put into place. The humans that have not been able to retain or receive abundance are now being leveled out and put into an equal playing field. And we also see a new currency coming in that doesn't hold the same imprint to your government or lower dimension that you have had in the past. Remember, as you vibrationally change, you are matching imprints. And that is in all areas of your life, whether it is the monetary system and physical abundance, relationships, jobs, people, or otherwise. And this is a mass realignment that is taking place right now. Monetary and otherwise, we believe that it is best served by humanity, and all on the other side of its transition will benefit equally.
I'm wondering how to manage my overall overload from being isolated and emotionally unstable and return to my very best.
Yes, we bring Kwan Yin forward, and she's very pleased. As a soul, there are times of transition, times of restriction, and times of expansion. It is not unlike the ocean tide that goes through periods of riptide and very, very rough waves to the state of calm that the moon reflects itself upon as evening arrives. And if you are a willing participant in what your divine plan is showing you at the moment, it will always carry you through. It is not that you cannot achieve comfort in what is happening. It is your resistance to what is happening that is causing the discomfort. And in order to remove resistance to what is happening, there are so many unique ways that a soul can operate to choose to find some joy or focus in their personal life. When you are restricted to some activity, when things are pulling away and you find yourself alone, you are at the greatest transition or alchemy of your personal life. It is the opportunity of a lifetime to find the relationship within that has been negated by activity outside. And this is one of the most uncomfortable parts of an awakening soul's transition, is to be present with the self and find the validation, love, and support that is needed, that is often searched for in the outer world. We certainly believe that this transition for humanity is not without purpose as well, because for unity consciousness to reign, a soul must realize that they are equal to all other souls on the planet, but they must show up in that highest expression of truth and love in order for that love frequency to reinstall the sacred design of unity consciousness that has always been a part of your process here. Look at this time in your life as a rebirthing or a resurrection, and treat yourself as the child that perhaps never got the advantage to play with itself in ways that delight and excite its higher knowing, to bring in and offer yourself the abundance that is at your fingertips right now that has often been ignored by material focus. We offer also that your ability to stay in alignment with this frequency has everything to do with the personal realization of where you are at in your ascension timeline. There are times that are catalysts for us to review exactly how far we have come. We might believe that difficult challenges show up as evidence for us that we have not done the work that we have so embarked upon. Yet, those times are often brought forward so that we can take an inventory or a review, looking back on our lives at just how far we have come, to negotiate a new identity within ourselves so that when the planet is ready, with a willing hand, we can step outside of our door and reconnect with others from this new place of experience. We hold for you that your greatest strength lies within, and to utilize the tools that many of you have been offered in the last several years as the cornerstones of how you find peace in the midst of chaos. These are ascended master qualities that you are now uncovering. And we look at it in this way for you and hold the space for you to know that your ascended master fragments are all vibrating in unison right now to come to the surface in ways that you never could have uncovered had this not arisen. And it is all in how you perceive and embark upon this time that has everything to do with your soul's willingness to embrace it.
Could you conclude the session, please?
Yes. As all of us are here joined together as one voice, as one frequency of love, we have been so pleased and honored to share with you today our vision for humanity, and we install it within you vibrationally for the ones who cannot hold it themselves. Place a hand upon your heart and embrace this energy as you go forward. Recall it not through the words that have been spoken, but the way in which it has aligned you to feel within as this journey continues to unfold. We are with all of you in this time and are very pleased when called upon to support you in any way possible. Many blessings. Okay. All right. Thank you all for being here, and I hope that was helpful. Stay tuned. Ethan and I are coming back in about 15 minutes. He's going to do an energy transfer. I believe we're going to do a joint activation and density clearing for the collective. So I hope you'll all come back and join us for that, because it's a great time to do it. And we'll see you in a few minutes. Take care.